優勝っていう言葉をあれっていう表現して、そっから来たみたいな感じで。
Welcome to the Lazy Fluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese so that you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Miami.
And the topic of the day is top Japanese words of 2023. Before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and drop a review on whatever platform you're listening on. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, top Japanese words of 2023. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We are wearing these Santa hats, and if our background was better, there would be more holiday things that you could see, but it's mostly a gray wall with some stockings up top. As to why we're doing this and not on New Year's, I don't know. This list actually came out December 1st, and I just forgot about it. I always like talking about the trending words of 2023 to see if I'm still hip, and either way, we can figure out I'm not hip, but at least we'll learn some new Japanese. I also pretty much didn't know any one of these words, except for one, which we talked about in the episode. Because we have 10 things to talk about, let's just jump right in to, although technically it's like top 30, right?
なんかノミネートされたのは30個ぐらいあって、でトップ10に選ばれたのはその30個のうちのまあ10個なんか。
Wait, do you know who's voting for this? Because a lot of these, I'm like, these have to be old. Well, I mean, Japanese people are old. We've established that. So, some of these would be surprising me if there's young votership on them, because like so many sports stuff.
もうね、どうやって応募したかわかんないけども、さすがになんかオンラインでなんか投票とかやったんじゃない？
I mean, I have absolutely no clue. I mean, if it's online, then I'd be surprised. Maybe Japanese people like following baseball and what was it? The Paralympics more than I initially thought. But let's start with the first word. We'll probably talk about some outside the top 10 if I'm just so confused about what's going on. And we did a cursory check to see that at least we know, generally speaking, what's going on. And the first one is the Kubifuri dance from, is this the name of the band called 新しい学校のリーダーズ?
そう。なんか新しい学校のリーダーズっていう、まあなんかグループ？歌手のグループみたいなのがあって、で、その彼女らのなんかダンスが流行ったんだよね。で、なんかこれが流行ったのが2023今年なんだけど、なんかこれがもともと作られた年っていうのがなんか3年前だったらしくて、でなんで流行ったかっていうと、なんか TikTok でそのバズったっていうか、バズるってだね、go viral でバズって、で今年2023年になんか流行ったっていうので、なんか今のすべてのトレンドって全部 TikTok から来てる気がするんだけど、なんでだろうっていうのはまあもうなんて言うんだろう、rhetorical question だけど、全部 TikTok だよね。
Well, I don't know if it's entirely rhetorical for me. Although TikTok is popular in the US, I feel like they're not entirely on generational divides, but I would say there are a bunch of different distinct user bases. And there's also overlap in terms of what is like if something becomes popular in one, it'll probably show up in some way on the other. And so although I don't use TikTok and I frankly really don't understand how TikTok is that popular, boomer mindset, I do use YouTube. And because of that, a lot of terms that are used on one end up flying to another one. I don't even know which one this started on. I think this might have been TikTok, but like, for example, instead of saying like suicide, people will say unalive. And there's many other terms like that people like do to get around censorship rules on a given platform. Also, I feel like Instagram users are very distinct from Twitter users, which are very distinct from TikTok users, who are very distinct to people who like watch stuff on YouTube. But in Japan, I feel like especially anytime I talk to anybody who I feel like isn't in med school, which surprisingly is not as often as it probably should be, they only seem to be talking about TikTok. Do you feel like that's like the only do you think how much of a like what would you call space in terms of like people's perception of what people are using is on TikTok versus other platforms? Do you anybody here you watching like this person on YouTube, or is everything TikTok conversation as far as you're aware?
なんか周りの話をなんか聞いてると大体 TikTok の話をしてる人も結構多くて、 で、TikTok でこういうの流行ってるけど、なんかすごいよねみたいなのが結構あったんだよ、周りで。でも私、TikTok もダウンロードもしてないし、使ったこともなくて、なんか何が流行ってるのか全然わかんないので。で、なんか今、流行ってんのが、なんかひき肉ですみたいな。それも流行ってるのも知らなくて、なんかそのひき肉ですっていうのが、ある中学校の中学生か小学生の、YouTuber がいて、そのグループが自己紹介するときに、その、一人のメンバーがひき肉っていうのがいいんだけど、その人のなんか自己紹介がなんか面白くて、それをなんか、なんていうの、リズムに合わせて、なんか、なんていうの、ポーズしながらするのが流行って、それも TikTok から来たかなんかで。で、知らないって言った時にマジで驚かれて、知らないのみたいな。そんな流行ってんのかなと思って。で、なんか、なんだろう。なんて言おうとしたか忘れた。
I mean, I think I was talking about. There's some trending words I learned this year that were not trending. They were trending 10 years ago, apparently. But maybe we'll talk about them later. I think, maybe. We'll get to other changes. But so yeah, this one's basically just a specific dance where you move your neck in like kind of what is that like snake thing? The Egyptian.
なんかこんな
Yeah.
なんかインドかなんか
Yeah, it's kind of that vibe, but they also are moving around their hands. I don't understand TikTok. I don't understand dance virality. So we will move on. Next one. Oh.
で、その、ちょっと付け足したかったのが、その TikTok の話を、周りがしてて、で、TikTok どれぐらい見るのみたいな聞いたら、1日時間あったら5、6時間見るよとか言って、それ、すごいねと思って。5、6時間ずっとスクロールしてんだよ。やばいよね。わかんない。連続かどうかわかんないけど、1日で休日多分、なんかベッドで寝っ転がってる人は5、6時間は見るんじゃないと思って、いや、なんか、すごいね。なんか TikTok がその人の人生に与える影響力っていうのはなんかすごいもんだなっていうのを感じた。
I just think that's insane because TikTok's only like very small video.
The average.
Yeah, but that's with that small like videos aren't even that long. That's crazy amount of videos.
だからもうだからずっとスクロールしてって、それこそアルゴリズムでさ、自分が飛ばすものはあんまり出ないし、自分が興味あるものはさずっと出てくるからさ、それであれなんじゃない？ずっと続いてくる。
I mean, maybe, but like for me, use like YouTube Shorts pop up. And I think the most I've ever looked at one is like I just click on one and then I'm like, okay, this one was bad. Or eventually like Vsauce will drop one. I'm like, that was funny. And then that's pretty much the end of that experience. But anyways, the next one is Are, Are. It's written in all capital and there's some context required for this one. Amy, do you want to explain that context?
これ知らなかったのね。知らなくてさっきなんか調べたら、阪神っていう、関西の、野球のチームがあるんだけど、そこで、その、38年ぶりに、2度目の日本一になったらしくて、阪神タイガースかっていう、球団がね。で、その監督が、その、選手が、優勝っていう目標をなんか意識しすぎないように優勝っていう言葉をあれっていう表現してそっから来たみたいな感じでなんかよくあるじゃんちょっとお前ら優勝しろよ絶対優勝だ今回優勝だとか言うとさちょっとプレッシャーに感じちゃってストレスになっちゃってちょっとなんていうの減速しちゃうとか多分そういうのもあってこの監督はなんだろうあんまり意識させないようにあれっていう言葉を使ってなんかあれじゃないあれとか言っちゃったこのあれとは違うんだけどハリーポッターでボーデモートをあの方っていうみたいななんか名前を出してはいけないみたいな感じのノリなんかな
Yeah, I was gonna say the way you first describing it maybe it sounds to me like it's more like Voldemort unless the guy's like I guess this PC Japanese baseball coach who's like I don't want to put any pressure on anybody to say the word win so I'm not going to say the win I'm just going to say that but I think it's probably like a weird like team superstition where if you say usual too many times then your usual won't come you're going to jinx yourself but yeah watching the video clips when he's speaking is very hilarious because of how much like there's a very distinct lack of any clarity when you're especially when I didn't understand the context. He's saying are like once or two times every sentence, and I don't know whether he's meaning are referring to something else in the sentence or are just referring to winning. Was this popular in the case that, because with both of these terms, like these are words we're talking about, is this just like, I think with like this list in general, because they're nominated, I think this list is more like things that were really popular at one point as opposed to people actually using these words, unless you've heard anybody using are in the specific way, which I think actually is pretty funny to do that. If you just choose a word in a conversation, just keep referring to it as are. But have you heard anybody, like, you didn't even hear about 9 out of 10 of these you didn't even hear about? Or, I mean, I guess you've heard about some of them, but they're more of like representations of what was culturally relevant during the year, more so than the words themselves. Which brings us to OSO 18, Abenbea. Oh, Abambea, yeah. Want to explain that?
ね、これもね、マジで知らなかったんだけどさ、なんか、OSO18 ね。オソね。なんでオソになったんだ？オソ別か。なんかこれ、アーバンベアっつって、まあ、なるほどね。なんか熊が街に出ちゃうみたいな。で、なんか、牛を襲っちゃうんだ。はいはいはい。で、人も襲っちゃうんか。
No, I mean, I read basically a bit of it, but basically there's been an increase of urban bears, which is the Aban bear. So bears going into urban territories. There actually have been an increase. Apparently, I think what I was saying, there wasn't like this. This year was one of the highest years of people being attacked by bears. But there also was a particular bear or particular types of bears who are urban bears who. Oh, go ahead.
そうで、なんかそれが北海道、一番最初に発見されたのが北海道の標茶町ってところのオソツ別っていうところだったので、そのオソツ別ってとこからオソになったらしいんだけど、まあ北海道の標茶町とか、なんか北海道っていうのはまあ昔っていうか、まあアイヌっぽい呼び名がついてるまあ地名が結構多くて、それでちょっとなんか発音しづらい地名になってんだけど、まあそれは置いといて、でそこのオソツ別が一番最初に出て、でこの18っていうのはそのクマさんの前足が18センチだったから、also 18 also 18になったらしいよ。
Is Mayashi referring to his paw, or is that referring to his like the length of his full?
いや、あれだよ、このサイズ。
Yeah, okay, the paw, yeah. Because
待って足だったらクソ短いやんこれ。
Yeah, I was like, that's what I was like. Yeah, I was just, Japanese ambiguity. That's what I thought. Okay, so I like just said this. It once again feels me more like an event, but I do find it interesting that the urban bear. This reminds me of South Park, where there's this thing called like the man bear pig, where you don't have to worry about this. And to many people, this might be a throwback, where this, or maybe even like a Bigfoot character, when you have this idea of something in the wild, like that could also like mess you up, but it's also secretive. Oh yeah, there's a big part of the urban bear is that it is very smart, so it'll like kill like livestock or other things around it, but it will evade humans. But apparently this is actually happening, and this is leading to more I think bear attacks. And in Hokkaido, this is actually, well, to some degree a problem, and it's been increasing recently, so I can see how this can be relevant. But I'm surprised because obviously Hokkaido is pretty like, not very densely populated compared to the rest of Japan. So
まあなんかあれじゃない、この地球が温暖化してるとか、まあね、その地球の破壊が、まあ、進んでって、でそのクマさんたちもなんか住むとこないとか餌がないとかで、なんか結構なんか街に降りて人を襲うとかね、家の中入ってっちゃうっていうとかも結構まあ最近は増えてるらしいね。まあかわいそうっちゃかわいそうだけど、クマさん。
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's what. Yeah, they were changing. They have to leave their environment or something. And Hokkaido, yeah, that might be the same issue. So urban bears don't want to be urban bears, I guess, is the also on the urban bear. I'm on urban bear team here, not in terms of the killing humans part. The next word here is one we actually had a whole episode about this year, and it was kairuka gensho, or the ick in English is kind of the equivalent, where this is based on a Disney story. I'm trying to remember which one it was. We had a whole explanation. It was explained to me.
王様なんだっけ、なんとかのプリンセスみたいな、プリンスなんだっけな、忘れてた。
Well, I think the general idea. Oh gosh, what was the original story? So it is like the ick, where you see somebody do something, and it grosses you out, and they become a frog. But in the actual original, tale, if I remember correctly, there is a frog. The frog then is nice to somebody, and then the princess kisses the frog, and it turns the frog back into a what's it called? Oh, Kairu no Osama. But I remember the English title of this was. But in the original story, it was all about, hey, the frog will do a nice thing for you. If you fell in love with this frog, it actually turns out it's a prince. But in the actual usage of the term, it means you see somebody do something that grosses you out, and you think of them as a frog, which is literally the exact opposite of the takeaway of the story. We had a whole episode on this term in specific, if you want to hear it's used more. And yeah, but the ick is basically somebody does something small that bothers you, and then you can no longer see them the same way. I think
なんか違うデフィニッションもあるんだけど、なんか好意を抱いていた相手が自分に好意があると分かった瞬間に冷める。なんかそれちょっと違くない？
Oh yeah, that's right. This was the other part. Yeah. This part was a little different, but this is also different from the original definition of it.
逆になってほら、なんかほんともともとなんか学術的になんか論文テーシスで出された時のその蛙化現象の意味っていうのがもともと誰か、私は A 君が好きだと。で A 君が好きで、その A 君が私のことも好きって分かった時に気持ち悪ってなっちゃうことなんだけど、なんかそれは今使ってる人たちの定義によると変わっちゃって、なんかA 君が私が好きでも A 君がちょっと足が臭いとかなってちょっと嫌だってなっちゃうことが今の若者が使ってる蛙化現象なんだけど、なんか元々の意味がなんか2点3点変わっちゃって今の意味になっちゃってるっていう。
None of those seem to be related to the original story. So yeah, just first version was you like someone, they like you back, and then for some reason that grosses you out. New meaning is basically the English version of the ick.
で2回変わっちゃったんで、もともとはカエルの王様っていうグリム童話がもともとカエルがいて、あんまそうね、グロスなカエル生き物がいて、だけどそれが実際王子様が、カエルに変身してただけで、で王子様に代わっていいハッピーエンドみたいな感じだったんだけど、それが変わってそのさっき言った自分が好きだった相手がその人が私のことも好きっていうのでちょっと気が冷めちゃうっていうのになって、そこからまた変わっちゃって、自分が好きだった相手が変なことっていうか自分イックなことがあって嫌いになっちゃった。
Next word. Don't think this one needs much talking about, but it's 生成 AI, generative AI. I think this speaks for itself. This was, I guess the last word was an actual word people are using, so that's interesting about it.
なんかこの生成 AI っていうなんかインスタグラムでなんか流行ってんの覚えてて、なんかアメリカって卒業アルバムあるじゃん、イヤーブック。
Yeah.
それのアメリカのイヤーブックみたいな服装とか、髪型に自分の顔を合わせて、それを AI がやってくれるみたいなやつがあって、似合う似合わないこんな感じだったっていうのをインスタ上で上げるのがめちゃめちゃなんか流行ってるっていうか、いろんな人がやってて、もうそれこそ芸能人だったりインフルエンサーとか、一般の人もやってたりして、それがもうなんかすごい流行ってたから、多分それで生成 AI なんだよね。
Oh, in Japan specifically?
いや、in Japan only じゃなくて、多分アメリカでも流行ったと思うよ。
I don't remember that. I remember like what it's saying here with like ChatGPT and all the ridiculous amounts of I don't know about progress. I'll say developments in the AI space. Yeah, I have what's it called? Oh, what is this? Oh, the people changing. I mean, these are all Japanese examples. So I'm saying I never actually saw this with like changing people's yearbook pictures. But I mean, maybe it was. Like, who knows? I'm not necessarily the hippest person or whatever. There's been a bunch of individual. I mean, there's been so many things related to AI this year. Whether it be like the whole. There was like, oh gosh, what was it? Where like AI, like deep fakes were related to AI, like generative AI, that becoming controversial. Then like AI porn was like trending for a whole period of time, like right after like Chat GPT, and then what was it? Then there was like AI, like virtual, like people would make AI versions of themselves, and then you put them OnlyFans version and start charging on that. I don't know where even that went. And pretty much in every other space possible. I guess we will. Something tells me in 3-4 years. Well, I don't know. The world's gonna be unrecognizable from what it is right now. Bow down to our AI overlords, I guess. Moving on to next keyword. 地球不等化。
これはただ単になんだっけな。今までの気温、史上最高気温になっちゃって地球が大変なことになってるよっていうただそれだけっていうとマジで怒られるけど
Well, yeah, every year, hottest year on record, 沸騰 boiling transformation, which is like, yeah, global warming, but yeah, it's a very rapid rate, which I think maybe why 沸騰。
そうでなんか今年日本で最高気温35度以上の猛暑日がなんか一番多かったらしくて、日本だと夏日、真夏日、なんだっけな、順番忘れちゃったけど、あと猛暑日、なんかいろいろカテゴリーがあって35度以上が猛暑日なのね。それが今まで史上最高に一番日数が多かったみたいな感じで、実は私夏7月8月1ヶ月間8月メインがニューヨークにいたから日本の夏がどれだけやばかったのか知らないんだけど、でもその家族になんか連絡した時に今日本めちゃめちゃ暑いよみたいな言ってて、そこまで暑かったんだって感じなんだけどね、多分来年もっと暑いかもねっていう、今のところ来年別にニューヨークとか海外行く予定は多分ないから来年やばい日本の夏を経験するかもしれない。
I mean, I'm still on the, you know, there's always that guy. If you say it's cold, someone's in the world saying it's not that cold. You say it's hot, someone's in the world is going to say it's not that hot. I'm still that guy for Japan. Japan, at worst, gets slightly uncomfortably warm for people who don't like hot climate.
40度になるよ。I'm
just saying that'd be like one location ever. Something for Kyoto basically peaked. Like when I was last in Japan, like hottest temperature on record was like in the mid 90s, which is like on the regular. You experience that in the US, you know. And so, yeah, and maybe I was just in Panama. So all I'm saying, the heat personally never really gets that bad. Although eventually it will. You know, shout out to global warming is doing its best every year. In terms of cold, because like global warming, you know, also affects the extremes the other way. That's what's going to bum me out. Once Japan actually starts getting consistently below 30 degrees, that's 0 degrees for you Celsiusers, then I'll be more sad. But as far as I've experienced winter in Japan, it never really gets that cold. So moving on to the other one, which is related to was this baseball? Yeah, Peppa Miru performance. I remember this one being めっちゃどうでもいい. But go ahead.
なんかワールドベースボールクラシックか WBC で、日本勝ったじゃん。日本勝った。
I have no clue.
多分日本勝ったんだよ。で確かそう勝ったんだよ。でその時にヌートバーっていう人、ヌートバーは確かアメリカかな、アメリカの日本とアメリカのハーフでアメリカで今所属してんのかなと、あと大谷、世界の大谷がなんだその球場で試合してる時にヒットとかしたらなんかこうやってペッパーミルをこうやってやってるパフォーマンス、そうグラインダーがあって、そういうパフォーマンスのことをペッパーミルパフォーマンス。
He was playing baseball, or is he Is he pretending like he's grinding a peppermill when he's playing baseball?
そうだからそれでなんか喜びを表現するパフォーマンスらしい。私これマジで野球見てないからなんとも言えないけど、なんかそういうのがあるんだって。
And I'm assuming, you know, I can't say whether this is used or not used. This is a sports thing. Japan loves baseball. Apparently, I've never met anybody who actually is into baseball, but apparently Japan loves baseball. Maybe it's just old people. It's like in the US, we have baseball fans. I've never met them. I think if you're from New York, you like baseball. I've never met anybody in my life who actually likes baseball. Literally not a single person. I've met people who like football, basketball, but baseball, I feel like you have to be born in New York. If not, you just aren't interested in baseball.
あとなんかこういう系のなんか、なんて言うんだろう。スポーツのちょっと流行り言葉とかで、何年前か忘れたけど、ラグビーで日本が優勝じゃねえか。なんだっけな。まあ、すごい、まあ、優勝に近い、まあ、ので、なんか勝った時に、なんか五郎丸選手っていうか人がいて、五郎丸がなんか、なんかな、集中するためにこうやってやって、なんかこうやってやる、なんか、そういうなんか仕草があったんだよ。それが、違う、ノミネートされて、確かになんか受賞もしたんかな、なんかで。なんかそういうスポーツ関連っていうのは、まあ、毎年ノミネートとかなんとか、なんかしらの形で入ってる気がする。
Next word, miru shou. This is referring to shogi, as in Japanese chess. Miru being watching shogi. Apparently, I think there was a specific person, I don't know the name, Fuji something, maybe Fuji Sota, who, you can go, okay, go ahead.
藤井聡太っていう人が、まあ、すごいんだけど、この人がなんですごいかっていうと、21歳なのに、今何段だろう。竜王なの。なんか、将棋にもいろいろ、なんか位があるのね、レベルっていうのがあって、まあ、空手のブラックベルトみたいな感じで、で、藤井さんは何なのかな、一番上ではないかなけど、すんごいタイトルを持ってるのね。21歳なのに。それで、なんか、普段将棋見ない人も、なんか見るようになって、だから見る賞みたいな言葉が生まれたっていう。
Well, there was another part about the story, which I think is probably one of the biggest parts of the story, is shogi is one of those things where it's very niche, and it's kind of like in chess as well, where, I mean, chess has been always pretty popular, but with like AI tools allowing people to have real-time ways of understanding like the board and the way that people can actually watch it when they're looking at online, it increased in popularity. And this also happened with shogi, and that is also putting an emphasis on the meter part of the watching shogi, is becoming a lot more popular, as well as chess, because of generated or not generative AI, just AI in general, and like tools they're using when they're actually streaming this. As for like the ranking system, I will say I don't know how it works with chess, but with if it's from, this is my only knowledge from Sangatsu no Raion, and I think this is true with like sumo wrestling and other stuff, is many Japanese traditional sports, they have a bunch of different levels, and it's not like if you lose a tournament or something, you go up or down. It's kind of like your overall performance over time determines whether or not you can go up, and you have specific matches that you can go and qualify to get into another rank. But there's also, in terms of getting demoted, it's kind of like decided like by a board, or I guess it also depends on the sport. But sometimes when you're like the best, these are being for sumo wrestling. Like you can get the top ranked in sumo wrestling, and you can technically never lose it. But what ends up happening is people basically get convinced to retire if they start losing, or yeah. But I think shogi, from if any my Sangatsu no Rain memory is correct, is if you lose, it's kind of like you have different opportunities to go up in ranks and go into different tournaments. And if you win those or win enough matches, then you go up. And then if you lose them, then you go down. And so I think that one's more straightforward. Anyways, next one, yami baito. I don't really. You were explaining this earlier. Go ahead.
なんかSNS 上でなんかこういう高収入のバイトがありますよっていうのをなんか募集して、でそこになんか若い人たちが じゃあわしやりますとか言って、でまあイリーゴーなことをやっちゃうっていうのがあって、まあ闇バイトの闇っていうのはまあなんていうの、darkness dark
Yeah, but it's like kind of like black market.
そうブラックマーケットで、まあやっちゃいけないんだよ、その違法なんだけど、なんかそういうことに手出しちゃう人まあいるよねっていうことで、でもそれが SNS 上でなんていうのやられてるっていうことがなんかすごい怖いよね。やっぱりそういうのも増えてきちゃうっていうか。
there's an example of one, like the ore saki. Do you want to explain that? Because I think that one's funny.
オレオレ詐欺っていうのはなんかなんていうんだろうね、おじいちゃんおばあちゃんをなんか狙って悪い人が電話かけるんだけど、そういった時におじいちゃんおばあちゃんって孫の声とかであんま覚えてないじゃん。しかも耳も悪いし。でその悪い人たちがそういうまあお年寄りに電話かけて、俺だよ俺っつって、俺さ事故に遭っちゃって賠償金が1億になっちゃったんだけどお金今ないからおじいちゃんか、まあ、おばあちゃん助けてくれないっつって、まあお金を騙し取るみたいながあるんだけど、それをオレオレ詐欺っていうのね。
I will say that although I'm not saying I'm happy that's happening or anything or blaming the grandparents for getting scammed in this way. I will say that I don't find this very believable because of Japan and its healthcare. If this was in the U.S., which it has happened in the U.S., I totally understand why Japanese people where grandparents get scammed. I could call my grandparent and be like, I actually got a cut on my hand and I'm being charged $5 million. And she'd be like, oh, you probably are. The American insurance is like, or America's like health insurance, there's not really good and you're probably getting fucked. But yeah, anyways, okay, just because we're getting towards the end. The very last one is 4年ぶり声出し応援. Basically, well, this one was more self-explanatory, which is it's been 4 years. There's been a huge like coronavirus thing. Still, Japan's been taking forever. It's finally feeling like they've kind of escaping from coronavirus. Like everybody's wearing a mask, and at least in terms of the general consciousness. And they've finally been allowed to actually shout and celebrate support and like vocalize it in like different tournaments and events. This is to say that before that, I think it was banned or just very looked down upon, and so they would actually have a lot of different ways to cheer without actually yelling. But now they've finally been able to do that, and that was that. So those were the top 10 most popular words, or I mean, I guess different phenomenons, but it's talked about in terms of Yukogo popular words. General thoughts? Do you have any general thoughts about these? How popular they were or impactful?
いや、わからなかった。正直、全然わからなくて、取り残されてるなとは感じた。けど、なんかノミネートされたやつに、推しの子だっけ、なんか推しみたいな言葉が入ってて、でそれは知ってたんだよ。なんか、最近推し活みたいなの流行ってて、推し活っていうのは、まあ自分が好きな、まあアイドルだったり人だったり、まあキャラクター、アニメのキャラクターとかをなんか応援するみたいな感じで、なんか結構多岐にわたるよね。なんかその韓国アイドルだったり、そういうそういうことしてる人結構多くて、でなんだろう、推し命みたいな人はその人のためになんかめちゃめちゃお金かけてグッズ買ったりとか、なんかそれが生きがいみたいな人も結構いて、すごいなって。
Yeah, I've heard that word. That word was used before, though. And even like I remember in college, I learned the term oshi for referring to something like that's your most favorite. But I guess using it to support a specific idol or something might be more popular. Let us know what you think of the words of whatever called most trending words of 2023. And I like doing this episode because don't really keep up with much in terms of the Japanese trends. So learning. 戻りました。
We're back. And in this section, this time we're going to talk about Japanese Christmas.
そう、まあ、日本の食べ物、クリスマスの食べ物について。みんなはクリスマスと思うと、まあ、クリスマスといえば、何と思うのでしょうか。日本のクリスマスといえば、食べ物的に。
Like, those who might know about Japanese Christmas, we celebrate with KFC.
まあそう、チキン、それが、
chicken.
まあみんな知ってるチキンだと思うんだけど、その KFC。だけど今年はいろいろな他の食べ物があるってことが、まあ、分かってきた。で、それ以外の食べ物というと、
Christmas cake, and pizza,
Not and pizza.
sushi.
ピザは日本のクリスマスの食べ物の一つ。それと寿司。そんなことを習ったのが、まあ、びっくりした。
roasted chicken とか。
そう。
Yeah, because like, I guess in my mind, people celebrate Christmas eating food which we do not normally eat. Like, especially like junk food or like high calorie food. Yeah, for example, like pizza or fried chicken and what's other?
Sushi.
Oh yeah, sushi. Yeah, we eat sushi though. But yeah, and then what surprised me was that Christmas cake was a Japanese thing. Because like when I was talking to a German friend, he said that Japan is the only country which celebrates with Christmas cakes.
まあ、ほとんどのことは日本ならではの現象だと思う。そのピザとか食べるなんて。
And especially we eat shortcake. It's a type of cakes. And shortcake was invented from American cake, and which used shortening.
Shortening, yeah.
Yeah. And then the person who invented that went to America, and then he altered into a Japanese version of shortcake, and that was made for specifically Japanese people.
でも何をやった特にそのショートニングということもものも存在してたんだけど、この人はなんか日本人の口に合わせたの、
なんか less sweet だし、あと fluffy にしたりとか、I guess.
その元ショートニングを入れたりってこと？ショートニングを入れることで元フラフィーになる。
Spongy.
でもそれがショートニングを入れることでそういうようになる。
No. Like originally it was like a cookie sandwich.
なるほど。
But like he made it into shortcake, and その shortcake is like sponge のなんか fluffy cake なんだけど、yeah, it's made for Japanese people.
Made for the Japanese palate.
And I didn't know that, so I was pretty surprised. Yeah.
まあってことはクリスマスケーキはまあ普通のケーキじゃなくて本当になんかサンタがなんか上に乗ってるやつとか、まあいろんな他のクリスマスっぽいこと。
Yeah, maybe you can put like a little picture.
いや、今はクリスマスだから編集はやばいから。オンラインで調べてください。クリスマスケーキ。
ね、ショートケーキ、クリスマスショートケーキ。
まあショートケーキも書かなくていいと思う。出てくるので。まあそれとクリスマスケーキは買えるけど、まあほとんどのなんかすごくいいクリスマスケーキ食べたかったらオンラインで、まあオンラインだけじゃなくてなんか注文しないといけない。前もって。
And then like maybe many people know that in Japan Christmas is for couples, not for families. And so like many couples go to the city and then see, I don't know, like illuminations, and then after that they have dinner, like Christmassy dinner together. So yeah, it's pretty different from other countries.
まあ前の話ちょっと戻りたい。そのピザと寿司とチキンの話、それは大事。なんかなぜこれが面白いかと思うと、なんかアメリカではそのピザとチキンと何でしたっけ、まあ寿司じゃないけどチキンとピザはまあみんな食べるけど印象的にあまりお金なくて、ただなんていうか何か食べたい、なんかジャンクフードに入ってる。でも日本だとその店に入ると、まあレストランとかまあ何でもいいんだけど、そのすごくなんか綺麗にラップされたり、なんかこれがなんかクリスマスのピザだけのセクションみたいになってるから。
Yeah, like pizza, yeah, like
でピザはなんかすごくよくできてる、まあよくできてるというか、イタリアっぽいのピザじゃなくて、なんかいろんな日本ならではのトッピングが入ってるの、まあ乗ってる。なんかわかる？何でしたっけ？なんかエビとかが。
ね、is it Like
アメリ
seafood
カ
pizza?
そうそうそうそう
Oh, wow.
それ独特
Maybe like Italian people have that kind of pizza. I don't know.
Seafood pizza
I guess. Yeah, because
with
like, you know, like,
mayonnaise マヨネーズとか
no. Spain, they have paella. So they use a lot of seafood. So I don't know. Like, maybe it can be a thing for them.
多分そういう伝統的なやつとちょっと違うかもしれない。なんかマヨネーズとかいろんな、何でしたっけ、醤油じゃないけど、照り焼きのソースとか、すごくジャンクフードっぽいけど、みんな、クリスマスだから。
Yeah, like I guess like for Japanese people, Christmas is for eating junk food, and like we can buy like large piece of pizza, large amount of like chicken, like marugoto chicken.
Roasted chicken.
Yeah.
そこはなんか何から始めたのだろう。そのピザとか寿司の、寿司の文化はわかるけど、特にピザ。チキンはわかる。チキンは KFC から、その会社がなんか、そう。チキンを売れるんじゃない？なんかの広告やって、クリスマスで、クリスマスにチキンを食べようみたいな広告がたくさんあったから、みんなはなんか食べるようになったんだけど、そのピザに関しては微妙。ってことで、今年の感想としては、今いろいろ話したいことはあるんだけど、多分その正月のエピソードでそういう話をするかな。なんか何でしたっけ？
No,
My New Year's goal. Oh yeah,
no.
できないかな？
Yeah, because like we have to talk
そうリモート
about this day. No. This year, this time じゃない。Because like it'll be next year.
いやで何でしたっけ？その日本語と英語でも忘れてしまった。
抱負？
いや、New Year's resolutions。抱負？いや、次のエピソードで話す。でも、つまり、もっと動画作らないと。And we're back with the final section. And if you made it to the final section, that means send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related and or otherwise. And this week we have 2 comments and questions from Oddity and Shockox. But first, we're going to talk about their comments relating to our last episode, which was about elite universities in Japan and fairness. Here, acceptance to universities is real, by the way. Here, this is from Oddity. Acceptance to universities works similar to Japan, except there's no prohibition to apply to certain schools. You can get accepted into any institution based on your SAT, your matriculation scores, and your grade score sheet from high school loan. Applying costs $80. It's also similar to Japan in that the state universities are subsidized and are the coveted schools, and the private colleges are those who, as Aimi put it, are baka and have the dough. The way I see it, it's not a system that's any less fair than an American one. I agree that SAT is stupid, but a student's academic record over the course of 4 years is enough of an indication of their future academic worth. The personal interviews, essays, and extracurriculars in the States were put in place to give a qualitative assessment of the student, but they don't seem to fill their purpose. Everyone knows which extracurricular colleges consider desirable and take them just so they'd be on their record. They also know what colleges expect to find in your essay or say in your interview, and there are preps for that. So this qualitative portion becomes, in effect, quantitative, much like the tests. Also, I reject the notion that one should be admitted based on how well their personality aligns with some imaginary, politically driven profile a bunch of upper-middle-class boomers thought of way back when. As far as diversity or affirmative action, which I support, you can factor that in based on socioeconomic data, which all applications come with. Well, at least here. Taking a separate test for each school you apply to, however, that's such an overkill. Does this limit the amount of schools Japanese students apply to, and they bank everything on 2 schools or something? And then Shockox said... where is it? Here it is. Okay, you were never prohibited from applying in America because of application fees. Colleges want that extra income. I bet they make bank of people not going, on people that they aren't going to accept. I'd argue the fees are prohibitive in a way. They're relatively inexpensive, but they stack up. I could afford about 3 schools. Some people can get a list of 5 stretch schools, 5 regular schools, and 3 schools. Some people, and 3 and 5 fallback schools. Grad school applications are even worse. That, and at least for music programs, you do need to apply to those and show up on campus to audition for the program, unless you're planning on taking more than 4 years. It's one of those majors that doesn't do general ed first. There's other things that he goes through in more, I guess, in more detail about this specific thing, but I feel like that's a lot of detail going into a lot of the different differences between U.S. and Japan, and in this case, Israel. I'm actually curious about your response to this, which is what Oddity said. Does this limit the amount of schools Japanese students apply to in terms of the way the system works with public education?
まあそうだよ。まあだってお金かかるしね。だし、だってその例えば、
Like for the test specifically, I'm wondering, do you have to study specifically for the like that school?
なんかまあ共通テストっていうのがあって、それはまあ過去問を解いたり、まあそれに合わせた勉強して、でそれぞれの学校でテストあるって言ったじゃん。でそれもその学校の過去問のまあ本っていうのがあって、赤本っていうんだけど、なんかまあ表紙が赤いからね。でそれはまあどの受験生もやるので、例えば早稲田大学だったら早稲田大学の何学部の過去問っていうのがあって、それをまあ本屋さんで買ってまあ5年分とか10年分やるんだけど、だからあんまり多く受けすぎるとその手が回らないし、まあ多く受ける人でも多分過去問を解いてない大学の受験をする人もいると思う。なんかまあ人によるけど、その医学部、私はまあ医学部受けて、で周りでもう十何校受けた人みたいなのいたのね。でそんな十何校もさ過去問やってられないから、過去問を解かないで受けた人も結構いて、で私は多分5個ぐらい受けたのかな、3,4個かな受けて、で医学部に特徴的なのは受験料っていうのが結構高いのね、他の学部に比べると。
You both have to pay and take a specialized test for that school. That's insane.
で一回医学部の受験をするのに1回6万するんだ。6万円。私立だと、プライベートだとね。で国立だと多分もっと安いんだけど、3万5千円か。だからまあそれまあ10個受ければそれの10倍かかるわけだから30万とかになっちゃうしね、私立だったら6万かけるで60万とかになっちゃうから、まあそれこそリミットはされるよね。まあ金銭面から言うと。
I can under no logical basis understand why, no logical basis in terms of a public school can understand why, or I guess no, you don't. Oh no, you do have to take a specific test. Yeah, I don't understand what the logic is by making people take a specific school test from a public system. It just reminds me of like a job application, and it seems like very Japanese old head being like, if you want to come to our school, you have to show that you would devote your whole life to our school, and we're so important to you. There's kind of like a system like this, sort of, which annoys me too about the U.S. applications, where you have to write a whole like essay and other stuff just for this school. I'm like, dude, fuck off. Like everybody, it's just there's so many schools, and I really wish that like a lot of that would just be dumped by the wayside. But some schools are fine with like a general essays and stuff like that. But I really don't understand that, and I didn't realize that that's so annoying. It's like taking an SAT for every school that you have to specifically study for too, and then pay for on top of that. That's something that Shawcox mentioned, which is the application fees on the American system can be prohibitive, and that's why people don't just spam like Harvard or other. You're just wasting money. Like right, if you're just spending, but Shawcox said they probably do make money on that.
なんでいっぱいいろんなそのなんていうのところにアプライするかっていうと、そのいろんなとこ受けた方がそれだけ increases the chance of ね actually get into like one university じゃん。だから
No, my point is the fact that you have to take a specific test I find ridiculous. That's the point. I can understand multiple applications. I'm just saying the fact that you have to take multiple tests, that you have to actually study for the test, like that's what I find a little ridiculous. But in terms of what I was saying earlier, in terms of applying to multiple schools in the U.S., that's why you have this whole idea of stretch schools or safe schools. Is you're trying to you don't have infinite money, and you also don't have infinite time. A lot of people spend like making personalized letters just to the school. I do disagree with Oddity almost actually fundamentally, which is very rare. Oddity and I disagree fundamentally, I guess. But I totally believe that a public school should not necessarily be, the point shouldn't just be about academically increasing your productivity or into a workforce. I totally think there can be values held by society, even if they're considered arbitrary beforehand. And I don't think that just has to be socioeconomic background in terms of opportunity. There's a whole bunch of diversity that comes and can benefit a system that's not directly related to academics. And I also don't think that public schools need to serve a role as a weaning force where you're trying to say, oh, you can only get into the public school if you're the best. I think like one of the benefits of public stuff is that everybody has access to it, regardless of their finances or situation. And also I also disagree that people just play the game and you can like outplay the game. For obviously there's a lot of benefits to having money, but with my personal situation and a lot of people I met in the school I went to, there are plenty of people who didn't really, you say, play the game and just are people who were very driven and they had a bunch of bad circumstances and they had worse test scores. They didn't write a whole soppy story, but the school, maybe it's just the school I went to and that's over-biasing me. And I do think the school's administration I went to specifically, it was very good, where they did choose somebody who didn't meet all the marks and they still let them in. Even and that even applies to me, which is like a whole separate conversation where I would definitely, I barely even, like I said, I didn't go do all the check boxes. I barely even knew I was going to go to the school I wanted to. And in terms of being studious, I wasn't even that much of a studious dude in the first place. And like my test score was like significantly lower than the average of the school I went to, because I also didn't even care about the SAT either. But for a bunch of other reasons, and maybe I just aligned with a lot of people trying to game the system, just my natural personality. But I met so many people from different backgrounds that truly are starting from different backgrounds, so not just rich people or people trying to game the system. That I do think that there is a clear benefit with the system, and you do get to meet a whole diversity of people. So I guess I do disagree on it doing nothing. Now, in terms of equal fairness, I guess we have to define what the goals are here, and we might disagree on what the goals of the school should be, especially a public or private education should be. There's one more question that Oddity asked, though, and it's how did the Unplugged go, and what did you talk about? So we mentioned, I don't know if it was last week, that we're doing a lazyfluency Unplugged. Amy, do you want to talk about it?
It's not actually unplugged だけど、it's just the title and the name なんだけど、まあ、what we did は、その学校で、まあ、うちらが行って、なんかちょっとゲームっぽいのして、Who am I と、あと、まあ、discussion topics を、まあ、やって、グループで、なんかまあ、5分、10分、この話題について話そうみたいな感じでやって、その後に、まあちょっとボードゲーム、まあボードゲームなのかなあれは。ウォーウォーフか。ウォーウォーフのゲームをして、で、まあ解散みたいな感じだったから、まあ別にあそこでポッドキャストを録音したとかでもわけじゃなくて、ただ単に、English conversation activity をしただけかな。
I mean, we were given the free reign to do whatever we wanted, but my opinion was, which I mean was correct, it's like, there's very, like, slim chance anybody listened to I mean, some people actually did, apparently. We had some listeners, but it was more so just a cool opportunity to, give different English practicing methods to some people. And so we did incorporate some stuff, I guess, in the themed influence of like English-Japanese conversation in the, the event we held. But we did not have like a free-form conversation like in a panel or something and them asking us questions. So maybe eventually, someday in the future, that'd be cool. But yeah, that's how that went. Just as a quick aside, because I know Oddity's been asking me about a film binge. I've been on a filming streak. And yesterday, so this was something I was talking about, and I wish I had the book here, but another cool thing about Japanese films is a lot of times when you go to them, and I think I mentioned this last time, but it happened. I can confirm it, because they actually give you like promotional, or like, for example, you go to a movie, and then they'll give you the script of the movie, like an actual like official printout. Oh, do we have it on the table? Oh, it's up. Don't even worry about it. But in terms of the Spy Family movie, there's a Spy Family movie that came out 2 days ago called Code White, and they gave you like a manga made just for the movie, and it's like it looks like any other It has a spine and a back into it. I could go grab it, but it's too far away. It's two steps. It's 2 steps. Okay, for you video watchers, we're doing this for you. I'll be grabbing this and showing you on camera. Apologies, audio listeners, I'm back, and this is what it looks like. So you can see the YouTube video if you want. This is something they gave you just for getting a ticket. I think it's only during the opening week. But you can see there's a bunch of different things written in here, whether it be mini skits from the movie, or like in the very back of this, there's a custom manga. Like it's a reenacting of the movie, but from the perspective of Anya. It's very cool. And it's like a whole like professionally done thing. And you just get it just for going to the movie theaters, which I've never experienced in the US. And I think it's super cool. So yeah, that's our update this week. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And we will catch you on our New Year's episode. More reflective thoughts over the year.
あとそうだね。1年間ね、聞いて、見て、くれてありがとうございました。来年も続けていきたいと思います。まあ何かない限り。
Yeah, and well, I mean, I'll say it for the New Year's episode. That bell means we reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us, another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com. We might respond in the next episode. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Santa Ayami.
Signing off. Jane.